commission members, I also, I mean, I know that we are working with a very short week, but I also printed off a commission roster with contact information. It's a two-sided document.
Anybody else need any? Mr. Sanchez, need to
It's
know
a
this?
two-sided document.
I have
You already got that.
Everyone needs to send a correspondence.
Yeah, you look beat, man.
Been up since Central Time. Morning.
That's what I noticed.
Do you want a chicken sandwich?
No, I'm good, thank you, appreciate
Oh.
it. Okay, we have to get up early for the flight. Last time I was in, this morning I was in Florida.
Okay.
Mid-morning I was in Tennessee.
Pumped out there.
As soon as I go home, then I'm gonna
Crash.
last night I had my food in the Atlantic, I was chilling in the island.
Business or pleasure?
The boy was graduating from company.
I do.
I have a couple more receipts to sign.
No, I know. I don't have my glasses, I'm trusting you.
So when my daughter was a newborn and we would go somewhere with Daddy, everyone would say, "How's the baby?" And it turned into a
I'm gonna put
very
it here
special,
in the-
be like, "The baby!"
You signed it?
Yeah.
So we can show
They're good. Chicken water.
¿The Sanchez gusta agua o...?
some water, yeah, that would be good. Yeah, so today, the new council meeting, remember all they were going to appoint someone to replace David Cardinal, but there wasn't a quorum, so they couldn't actually meet.
So does that make hard?
Well, we're still good. I believe we'll just operate without having a bunch of the chair and vice chair.
Ya le cambiaron el nombre a Israel, now he's Isabel.
Isabel?
Did it autocorrect for that?
I'm sure he'll appreciate that.
Close, but no cigar.
We'll fix it on
Pues
the-
Isabel
Well,
is
fix
a
it
name
on
for
the
males too, you know.
I'm sure it is.
It better be. Thank you.
That's too late, you can't change it.
No, we'll update them.
Tear that page out of his book.
Print them again.
Any more of those books?
Some charter books?
Oh, these books.
You don't have any extra?
Book? Oh.
I have an extra one here.
No. Of
Oh,
yours.
oh, of these,
Yes,
yes.
please, thank you.
Yes, of course.
I'll give mine up for
You can.
short.
Yeah,
got extra.
there's some extras.
This list
No,
was
I'm
the
good.
longest time.
You sure?
Like, until right now, I did not have a nice clean list. Usually have to read the once upon a time in the minutes.
Going through.
No, I was just thinking. Hi. Oh, here you go.
And get them like, we have them-
Let me get some.
Oh, you're fine, you're fine.
Jesús Rodríguez.
José Luis Castillo.
Mucho gusto.
Yeah, let us know whenever you want to get started, because there's a quorum. I don't know, how, to be waiting for one?
Who's Pedro?
Mr. Reyna said that he had night court, so he might be a little bit late, but he was planning to attend. Mr. Cisneros, I wasn't able to get a hold of him today, so, but I left him a voicemail, so I wasn't sure if he was available or not. I believe he told us he was available on Tuesday.
He did say he was.
Yes.
It wasn't, so I guess, y'all wanna wait a little bit, or you wanna start?
I'd rather wait, have as many people as possible.
You wanna get a
Can I take that in? Picture?
10 minutes?
Whatever you think is proper.
Thanks. Gotta get it
Waiting
short.
for, okay? Oh, yes, of
There's a
course.
lot to do.
Oh, no.
I don't want to put them in charge.
There you go.
There you
No,
I'm serious.
This is a hot social occasion. Stand
Yeah,
for a
I know,
moment.
Hey, Debbie, we need to come.
Yeah, I can move over.
Just Mr. Reina? I think we should start.
Yeah, based on the timeline, we have,
Does he
We
have?
need every minute.
Did you get a book?
City
No, I
consumption.
Do
did.
you have a pen? Need a pen? And here's a pen.
Yeah, I could use one, thank you.
Here you go.
Mr. Castillo, would you like a sandwich?
No, I'm fine.
I think we'll have some spares if you want.
Thank you.
Do you want to go ahead and get started? I think that's pretty much everyone.
Yes.
All right? Calls to order.
Tiffany's gonna do roll.
Armando Cisneros,
Here.
Efraín Sánchez,
here,
Ana Sáenz,
Here.
Ignacio Tami Gutierrez,
here.
Jose Luis Castillo,
Present.
Jesus Rodriguez,
Present.
Elizabeth Flores,
Present.
and Israel Reina. He did notify us that he has night court, he might be a little late, but he's planning on attending. So you do have a quorum.
The next order of business is the selection of the commission chair and vice chair pursuant to the Code of Ordinances. This has to be done at this meeting, so you want to go ahead and proceed.
I was just gonna say that, I know one of the issues in the code says that when everyone's appointed, and since Councilman Alkill hasn't appointed, that was only a concern.
Well, he has been appointed, so, I mean, it says as soon as the whole commission has been appointed. I mean, they were appointed, all of them.
I believe, I'm sorry. I believe Mr. Oswald has not appointed anybody.
He appointed David Cardwell, is my understanding, but
He was disqualified.
that's news to me. I
That's
don't-
what I understand, right?
Well, Mr. Carter, yeah, he let council member, that's why there was an item today, but the meeting wasn't held,
So there's
that
no-
he was registered to vote in San Antonio and not in Laredo, and so he was gonna replace him. Technically, he has been appointed, so until he replaces him, I guess he's still there, even though he hasn't gotten sworn in because he doesn't qualify. So,
But if there was an item in the agenda.
to replace him,
To replace him,
yeah.
then that means that he needs replacing and he hasn't been replaced.
Right, but you're required by the code to appoint the chair and the vice chair at the first meeting after appointment of the full commission. So, I mean, as far as we're concerned, but this is the only meeting that we have to do it at.
So
Unless you
you're-
want to proceed with
I
that.
think the urgency is
Yeah.
you're taking precedence with the urgency
So-
over the actuality that there's no appointee, right?
Well, if we're going to abide by that, then I nominate Mr. Rodriguez as chair and Ms. Ana Sáenz as vice chair.
I decline the vice chair. I'm here to learn, and I'm going to turn it about.
Mr. Rodriguez as chair. Would you accept, sir?
I don't know anything about parliamentary procedure, but I'd rather that you be the
Yes.
chair, since you've been mayor for 8 years.
You
But
beat me
thank
to
you
the
for
drum, I
the,
was going to.
But thank you for
Thank you
the
for the
nomination.
confidence, yeah.
Ms. Hale, but so your definition of a full commission is that what we have now? Because
It's
we,
say after the appointment of the full commission. So
Okay.
there was a full commission appointed. Now, subsequent to that, Mr. Cardwell apparently made it known that he didn't qualify, that's a different story entirely. But if we were not to abide by that, then there would be no chair or vice chair, and then there would be,
So you're using the sequential argument that this happened, now we can do this?
yes, there's no reason not to proceed. And even if there was no chair or vice chair, you could still proceed.
Okay.
Really?
There's nothing that requires it. It obviously makes things go a lot more orderly.
I would rather
Yeah.
that we meet when there is a full attendance,
Let me,
so that every district is represented, because if
That's-
glancing at the proposed amendments here, you're asking for very, very serious matters to be taken up, and for not, District 7 is not represented here, so all those people in that area are what?
and just to clarify, we're not asking for anything. We're doing what we were directed to do by the city council. And if you want to look in the booklet, we have no opportunity to get a full commission. This is the only time we can meet is this week. We have to have what was already presented to council for us to get the language. We need to present that to council on Monday, the 18th. This is the last day we can present it in order to meet the deadlines.
Does the councilman know that his district is not represented?
Yes, he does. It was actually on today's agenda for him to replace somebody, but there was no quorum, so one was not.
So what happens if we don't get this done this week? What happens then?
The matter will still be presented to the council. I mean, they've already given us, I believe, how many do we have now?
25.
25. These are 25 recommendations that were presented at the last council meeting. So they just asked us to get the language, which is before you now. In addition to the language, you have the right per the ordinance and the charter to present additional recommendations. And so all of these were going to be presented on Monday. But if we were not to have a commission, we would still be providing the language to the council for their
for their vote.
consideration.
Are
And-
we,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so just to clarify, so then if we were to say, well, you know what, we really should have everybody's representation from every council, from every district here, what would happen then is that these very recommendations, council would decide on them, right?
Correct,
Okay.
yes. And ultimately, they have the final say,
So
but they won't
then-
have your input.
Right.
There won't be.
But
an-
even with our input, they still have the final say.
Correct, but I think that they would, that's what they wanted, and that's why they had
Okay.
chosen to do so, because they wanted to have your input. Unfortunately, there's just very little, if any, time.
Well, if we're going to proceed, I will join, but under protest, that the whole district of this town is not represented here. And I don't think that's fair or just. And what's the urgency to have these amendments done in 3 days?
the election?
Timeline.
If you allow me a few seconds, because I was in on the 81 charter revision, well, 79, 80, and 81, where we took what we had back then and switched it to what we have today. But we debated 2 years on that. That's a serious matter. We're going to change the Constitution in 3 days without even having the full city represented here?
I agree.
Whether it's legal, is
And I
it
agree.
right and just?
I agree with you, and that this is probably the smallest amount of time that I've seen them appoint a commission, and to have to do it in 3 days, in 1 week, is very difficult. This is a little different because what they're asking you to do is review what they've already presented for consideration. So we're not asking you to review the entire chart and come up with individual recommendations. They've already voted on certain provisions that they wanted to see changed. And
Yes.
so that's what we presented.
Yes, but if they called us, they created this commission for this purpose, then it's up to us to decide whether we meet partially or fully, or wait until the emergency is explained to us.
And let me, can you explain the dates? And if you have the.
No, I'm not talking about the dates that you have to present this information to the council. I'm talking about the urgency of changing our constitution and glancing at what's here. You're talking about fundamental changes to the charter. that would fundamentally change the structure of the city government, and we're to do that in 3 days, and I don't know about the rest of you, but this is my first looking at this material, and we're going to change the fundamental structure, recommend that the council do those matters, changing the fundamental structure, because the way it is right now, some of the things listed here provide for drastic reduction in the power of the manager and giving it to the council, and that changes the whole
Do we have the
process.
right, in following his train of thought, do we have the right to say that this commission requires a lot more time and that we don't agree that anything should be changed without council giving the commission its appropriate time, and therefore we're recommending that this not be on the election and that it be carried on to the next, whenever the next,
If you make a motion, I'll second it.
You have a right to,
Yeah,
definitely.
you have the right to do that.
well, I make the motion if
And I
you would
second the
like.
motion that these
Because I think
matters not
that's
be handled in
invading
3 days
everybody's
and not be on the
say.
ballot in November until sufficient time is provided for the commission to really debate serious matters.
I agree.
And I even, I think the council members themselves may have jumped the gun, and we would like for them to have a little bit more time. There may be other more serious changes they want to make, or maybe they have second thoughts about the changes they proposed. I don't know. I don't know if they had enough time. They're very serious people, and we want to give them the proper amount of time as well.
And one other thing, the duty, our charge is to make recommendations. And here we are not making recommendations, we're listening to recommendations already made. So,
Well, if Mayor Flores made a motion and I second it,
If there's any other comments amongst the group, if not, then would you all like to vote on
I
it?
have a comment. Ignacio Tommy Gutierrez, for the record, y'all. I've served on the previous 3 charter revision commissions, and I agree with you guys about the timing. It's very little. It's not enough. We've been tasked to go ahead and review their proposals. That's the task that we've been assigned. We haven't been tasked to create new proposals. We have been tasked to review their proposals and approve or deny them, and then eventually they make the decision. Even if we deny it, they can approve it. So in previous charters, from my experience working with the charter review, if you guys want to do this, it can be done, because we're only reviewing stuff. We'll look at it, we vote on it, boom, we can do it today. Each one, spit them out, because we're going to vote. Or, it only takes one individual to derail it completely. I've been in charters before where they derailed it for 6-7 months. The last one, they derailed it for 6 months, and then they took it to a vote for the public, and the public shot them down. So, why do that? They've done most of the work for us. It's here. It's like, hey, you like this? Discuss it, approve, disapprove. Or, we can say, it's not enough time. That's up to you all to decide as a.
well, there's a motion. There's a motion that the matter
yeah, second.
not be handled and that it not be on the ballot in November, and it's been second.
Let me add one more thing, because of what you've enlightened us with. Do you think they had enough time to review these things, and actually make these changes? Or do you think it was a spur of the moment as well, because they were under the gun of a time? And let's assume that we say what we're proposing, that it's too quick and we want to wait. Can they say, well, then we're going to deny the commissions and
Put them on the ballot.
and put them on the ballot? Can they do that?
I was just gonna comment, I had spoken previously to the council members, maybe about 2 months ago, and said, look, staff, we see some concerns or some issues, minor or major, some conflicting sections in the charter. November election's coming up, we'd like to make these changes. I think I spoke to each one of you and kind of told you where we started with this. By the same token, I did mention to them, if you have any concerns, you might want to bring them up at this time. By law, they have the right to just, they don't have to do a commission. At the last meeting, it was very short notice. They said, well, let's just do the commission to review our proposal. Each one had certain proposals, some of them didn't propose anything. Again, yes, there is no time really for the commission to really get involved and look at the whole charter as a whole. But like Mr. Gutierrez just mentioned, and I will state this, that you can make the motion that you made, Mayor, and they will consider it, but at the end of the day, they want to move forward, they're going to move forward anyways. And I think that they'd rather have some input, if any. And I would say if this commission does not want to do that, that's fine, you have the right. I would just ask each individual person, that the person that appointed you, you have what staff is recommending. Yourself, if you get home tonight, the next 2-3 days before Monday's meeting, look over it, talk to your council member and tell them, I don't agree with this, I agree with this, because they appointed you. And so if you have that opportunity, at least go review this on your own time, because I know time is of the essence for this. Are they moving forward? I assume they're gonna move forward on some of the items, and it's all based on what they want to approve as a whole. So, I mean, yes, you could protest and say, we don't have enough time, we don't want you to put it on.
But they could still.
But reality, I feel they are gonna put some of the items on.
See, yet they have the power to whatever we recommend, they have the power to
Okay.
discard it,
Accept
it, discard it,
Okay.
say thank you very much.
Yeah.
But the thing is that if we make a recommendation for not to consider these items until we have more time, and that the public be here, where's the public?
We are the public today.
No, we're not, the public
Yeah, I
will
know.
be,
There's-
once they read
Right.
an account of what's happening here, but there's not a single person from the public here, and they're asking for major things here. They're asking for the council to hire and fire the city attorney and the city secretary. Those are functions that the manager has right now, and so now they want to have that power.
I hope they never do
I mean-
that though.
I mean,
I don't know what's worse, that or having elections. Remember when the city secretary had to run for office?
No. Let's not go back in history.
the charter has provisions for change, of course,
Yes.
but the thing is that they're asking for major changes here, and the public should be brought in, it's like, what do you think?
Well-
But discuss it, I mean, what are the merits of giving more power to the city council versus you're going to lose some checks and balances here. Then the council is going to have both legislative and administrative powers. I thought we fought that battle 30 years ago. When one person hired and fired and decided who was going to be whom in this town. That's why we changed the constitution back then, but we debated 2 years over it. 2 years, more than 2 years actually, because I was, my commission was from February of '79, and the public didn't vote on the charter revision until April of '81. And so there was ample time for the public to get involved here. What is the emergency? Do we have an invading army coming in that we have to handle matters of such importance overnight? If our recommendation is not to do this and for them not to put it on the ballot, at least the public will know that at least we're serious about this matter. Otherwise, it's a rubber stamp commission here. Give me the rubber stamp and say yes, 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 yes. And then yes or no over there, and they take care of it. Why are we even here?
Also,
Discuss is that matter, such serious matters over a period of 3 days without the public and then without the full city being represented here. If it's legal, I don't think it's right. I don't think it's just. I don't think it's fair.
And again, we were directed, whatever changes were agreed and are agreed by council, we are directed, those aren't decisions that will be made by this commission or the council, but by the voters, and we were directed to make these propositions very public, go to the different districts, every single one, and publicize everything and the pros and the cons and the differences and what they need. So just so you know, we're gonna do that.
The next 5 months or whatever,
You have
6
5
months
months to
from here to
do
the
so.
election.
So it's ultimately up to the voters, but as far as getting them on ballots, of course, that's the difference right there.
If I may say, this is the opportunity that the council has given us. These are the recommendations they're making. It is us as citizens appointed by our representative to provide input on the proposals. The proposals ultimately are decided by council. These proposals are determined by them what will be on the ballot. In the end game is, just like it happened in the last election, the residents or the citizens vote on it to approve or disapprove, no matter what the council is. The council has given every one of us the opportunity to put input onto this. And it's we can either put our gun to us and say, boom, we don't want it, let's just, you deal with it. You, council, you do what you want. Okay, we can do that. Another thing I'm telling you, being in charter reviews, I strongly suggest that we follow staff's advice. We need to get the nomination done right now, so we get that out of the way. If whoever's elected chair and vice chair, they decide, okay, we're not gonna do it, they can go ahead and say it, it's done, and we're out of here. But we're gonna be going around in circles for another 2 hours until we appoint the chair and vice chair.
Ms. Hale, the agenda item was a one-page, I've attended charter meetings before. The agenda items are usually very detailed, with section numbers and everything. Are you concerned that this might not meet the
No, I'm not.
Texas Open Meetings Act
No,
provisions for sufficiency?
no. It's sufficient.
It
We're
is?
going over the propositions.
For the
that-
public? For the public?
Yes.
Okay.
These were already provided to the
It's a good
council at the
question.
council meeting. These have already been given to the public. They're aware of.
Because I looked at the committee calendar and it only has one page, so that's why I'm asking.
But do they know, based on the public notice, the posting of this meeting, do they know specifically what recommendations? Do they need to know through the posting?
And these
No, not the recommendations.
No.
If
And
But
that's,
the-
I think it references
Well,
the council.
the meeting was, well, they discussed it at the meeting on the May 29th, so that's where they made all the recommendations, so that was,
but the public does not have that list of recommendations as we do, correct?
No, they're in the
You're in the
minutes.
It's a
minutes.
which were
workshop,
posted.
right? You're in the
Well,
workshop.
well, I'm not asking if the.
Usually, you know,
Usually they
the
get-
background.
Okay.
Yeah, because I know that council has been dealing with it for some time, and these issues have popped up individually here and there, but that doesn't substantiate a public notice of a meeting.
It does. I'm very familiar with the law, and I can assure you this is sufficient, okay? And if you want to question it, that's fine. There's no way that we would know exactly, that we cannot put everything on the agenda. And generally speaking, when y'all had your 2 years meetings, you had that luxury of knowing, okay, we're going to deal with these sections today, and we're going to deal with these sections today. Unfortunately, because we're in a time crunch, we're going to deal with everything that we've been presented to provide you, and we can't put everything here. So the law only requires that you have reasonable notice of the subject matter, and I think everyone here knows exactly what we're been charged with. Unlike other years where really it was anyone's game as to what was going to happen, this is the charge by council, the specific notices, and
How many?
they're in the minutes.
How many are there?
There started off with a lot more. I think there was 40, but there's only 25 because after talking to some of the councilmen, we were able to reduce it because these were already in they're already in the charter, or they're better suited by ordinance. So as of today, I think we have 25. They've been reduced to 25. Some of these, again, I will note that were staff recommended, and that's just to bring the charter up to date. For example,
How
the
many
last
of
time.
those are there?
Just
probably 4.
We try to condense that.
So we're
too.
gonna deal with 21, really.
Yes. And many of those we're going to recommend, I think we have an asterisk to the council that they just consider those as by ordinance. They're more appropriate in the form of an ordinance than a charter, honestly. So I think
On
there's-
some of these?
I think probably like was it 6 of them,
Yeah.
maybe, yeah. So there's really about how many?
So will you tell us beforehand?
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
have
yeah.
those. We were going to make those recommendations to them and advise you, and we would even have relevant provisions.
Well, that makes it easier.
Mayor, if
Mr.
I could- if I
Rodriguez?
could just jump in real quick, I know that, I guess, first business of order was the chairmanship. I know they nominated you, I think you accepted, but I think we should vote on that, or the group should vote on that, and then we'll do the vice chair, and then we can go back to your motion about,
Well, I nominate Mr. Gutierrez as vice chair.
so you want to do both of them together?
Yes.
You all want to
I
vote on
second
that?
that nomination.
Okay. So I guess call for the question on that issue, so we can,
Mhm.
so all those in favor, please raise your hand.
Okay. I'm sorry, what happened to the motion we had?
He's still there.
We're still there.
Well, the
We're
first
still-
motion was to the
Okay.
chairman, and I think we didn't vote on that, and then jumped into.
So we're gonna go to the other one after this?
Yeah,
Okay.
first step first. So, all those in favor for Mayor Flores to be the chairperson and Mr. Gutierrez to be the vice chair?
Yeah.
So moved.
Abstain.
One abstention. Okay, and then your motion was,
Okay, and so in listening to Mr. Gutierrez and others about this, and then getting more information on these, then it'll actually be less that we have to look at, especially if some of them are going to be recommendations to be an ordinance instead of a charter change. So I say, Mr. Rodriguez, I withdraw my motion, and let's take a stab at it. I hate to let them down, you know, because
Let who down?
the council members, because they believe in this, in whatever changes they're proposing. So I hate to let them down, but we have to advise them that we're gonna do our best, given the short time. And if we don't, and we're not able to go through all of them, the most important ones, then we tell them. We give them a recommendation on the ones we were able to go through, and on the ones that we weren't able to go through, we just say, we don't say yes or no. We weren't able to, I don't know, to discuss.
Well, you said you don't want to let them down, but we're letting the public down, we're letting the citizens down by taking up matters of such importance over such a small period
Well,
of time.
and I agree with you. However, the council members represent the public. Each member of they represent their district. So they're speaking for their district. They're saying, in my district, I think the charter needs this change. And so, you know, because Ms. Hale said, once we make the recommendations, once they get on the ballot, whichever ones end up on the ballot, there's going to be a lot of public information out there. I like that, you
But
know,
we
so it's
also
not a done
represent,
deal.
by our being appointed to this commission, we also represent the citizens of this community,
That's right.
Well, there you go.
not just them. So we also represent the citizens of this community, and I, seriously, these are very important matters. The procedural things, I mean, can come and go, but we're basically talking about undoing a lot of what we did in '81. And back then, there was a greater need to do those changes because of the abuses that the city government was involved in.
Well, let's just say that this committee recommends against one of those. It will be made public that we recommend one of those changes that you're talking about. Let's say that we go against it, okay?
Yeah,
It'll
there's
be
several.
I know, but it'll be made public, and the public will be aware that although the council members wanted this, we, representing the council, the districts ourselves, you know, went against it.
Okay.
So I think it'll get the attention, I think. I don't know. I hope.
The way that I see it is council's gonna move on this with or without our input.
That's right.
So do we wanna put it on, do we want them to put it on the ballot without our input or with our input?
That's
That's
exactly
a
a
given
good
that they have
point.
the power. But if we're going to rubber stamp their
Well, I don't think
recommendations,
we are.
why have a commission?
I think we should take time instead of talking about all of this. let's just start looking at them and let's make recommendations. And the ones that we can't agree on tonight, we can set aside and do another one tomorrow, another 2 or 3 tomorrow.
Okay, being that the commission established its own schedule, we are not held to that 3-day schedule, do we? We get to vote if all of us agree that tomorrow is a good idea to go to the next one?
Well, unfortunately, we sort of are because of the time.
Well, because this way, the decision was made for us, so
Yeah,
I think we need more time.
They pushed our buttons.
Once we're here, we decide.
You all agreed,
We
guys.
we decide, otherwise why have a commission? We decide our schedule.
When to meet and
And we
all.
decide the necessity of the urgency. They might see an urgency that I for one don't see, but we had back then. Now, what's the urgency?
Well, now we're back to the first question.
Welcome.
Hello.
That was done?
Otro uno.
Yes.
Where do I?
Can you squeeze in here?
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
one.
I can. ¿Qué tal? ¿Cómo está?
We're already counting your proxy vote.
You can have my proxy.
You voted yes.
Alright. I like to do on the bigger side.
Don't worry about it. The employees won't tell you if that's salary decrease.
And that's yours.
I saw you.
I don't know, I want one.
No, who wants the dessert first?
I know, I forgot to do it.
No, so está olvidando que como los perks
If that helps you make a decision, there's chips and cookies in here besides our sandwich.
Any more comments?
Better now.
Do we have any public
Is there any
comments?
other
We're on the next
sandwich?
one.
My cookies.
Got it right there. How are you? No. You want a sandwich?
Getting back, Mr. Reyes, to what we were debating, not debating. My feeling is that if we go along with what they're doing, that we're pretty much supporting what they're suggesting for us to do. And,
I don't think so. I think if, you know, just to take one, police chief. I think if we say, we don't agree with this change, and we vote on it, and it becomes public that the commission did not agree, I think the council will look at it and consider our feelings and our recommendations. I mean, they didn't appoint us just to appoint us.
Mayor, if I may?
Yes, dear.
Sort of like planning
Well-
and zoning.
I certainly would have thought that to be true until we went through this experience last time.
Until when?
We went through this experience last time, you know, we had something like 27 recommendations and only, I think, like 3 or 4 actually made it to pass the litmus test. So if there's no connection between, no link between what we're doing here and what the city council really wants, then, you know, it's practically a waste of time.
Mr. Reyna, if I may, response to yours. We sat together on that one.
Yes, we did.
Mr. Reyna, can, and Mr. Castillo sat with us as well. Both of them can attest to the ability of the group to end up in a stalemate for months, discussing stuff that's off on a tangent and not getting to where we need to get into. The council has given us the opportunity to review this. We can say, hey, you know what, we don't agree with this. Well, let's go and say, we don't agree to this, we don't agree to this. Let's go one by one, determine which one we don't agree, so we can get this thing out of it. If we go off on a tangent again, we're gonna end up just like the other meeting. You know how many months it went by? The people, you know, and then we finally got to a lot of the items that you wanted, a lot of the items Mr. Castillo wanted, and a lot of items that I want. Once we got rid of that little, and it forced them to go to the voters, and they got voted down. If we have another scenario right now, that whatever group may exist can go to the voters again. But we can get this stuff done. We either have a say-so on it, or we can just say, no, you know what, back to you, and you guys do it anyway. It's your opportunity.
but getting back to your initial motion, that if we recommend that it not be, because you mentioned the election, and that shouldn't sway the type of government we're going to have for the future, because there's an election coming up. These matters need deliberation. The public needs to be brought in my opinion, to,
But I think,
for
Mr.
input.
Rodriguez, the only way the public's gonna be brought in is if we take the 3 days to yay or nay these things. Because otherwise, the public's, if we go along with the motion, and we say, then the council does whatever they want,
Yes.
then the public's
Yes,
gonna
but at least
wonder why
we're
we
not-
didn't
But at least we're
discuss.
not saying, yes, we'll go with your
No,
attempt
but I think the public would wonder why we didn't discuss.
My main point is the public doesn't know what's going on.
And you don't think the public would say, when were we invited? When we changed the charter, because back then, we did have an emergency in 7980.
They weren't
Our
invited.
meetings were held on Saturdays for months and months and months to allow the public to come in. And back then, there was a consensus. The council wanted these matters, the mayor wanted these matters, the public wanted, and they overwhelmingly voted for it. Here, is there a consensus as to what the council wants? Or they divided, is the mayor, and see, we're here saying, yes, we want to say, yes, put it on the ballot. Why don't we just wait until the election is over and then, con calma, debate these matters?
Let's,
Deliberate matters that are going to
Let's
be
do
in the
this.
charter for years to come, and what goes around comes around, and because right now we may not like a certain faction, we're going to react to that situation, and then it can come back and bite us.
okay,
Well,
then let's think about this.
let me recognize
Yes.
whoever is recognizing.
Go ahead.
Chair.
Well, I think our idealism, was short-lived last time around, and I think I've seen it before, and it'll happen again. Our idealism is that this body here is, is worth its salt, that it's gonna come through and make, recommendations to put on the ballot, city charter amendments, they have to go on the ballot. Only if the council says so. Not if we say so. If only the council says they go on the ballot, they're gonna go on the ballot. Okay, that's the first reality. That's a reality check that we have to make, go up, from the start. Secondly, I'm with you. We all thought we had, goals. We all have the same goals: transparency in government, more democratic initiatives in our city charter, and debates. We know the huge one, the debate, the controversial one, 4-4. But that aside, there's a lot of consensus on the commission that this was important for the people of Laredo. We should have this as part of our city charter. They were shut down like they were clay pigeons, They were out there like, playing games with what we had done. And it wasn't done by, people who were incompetent, people who hadn't thought about it. All the people that were on the commission last time around that I recall, on both sides of the aisle, if I could put it that way, did their research. We even had our Laredo, I think our Laredo put some petitions on the table as well. We took some of those and considered those as well. It was open. And it was great discussion and debate. And I can tell you from firsthand that we put a lot of work into all of that. Yeah, we did get off a tangent for different reasons, but that always happens. But the point of the matter is that once we got to the council, it's if we hadn't done anything. They reviewed it, and I guess the process there is, they sit with their lawyers and other city managers, the city managers, whatever, and they go through the process of reviewing all the recommendations, and they say, esta sí, esta no, esta sí, esta no, and there's no real, communication or debate with the proponents, city charter commission, that actually proposed those recommendations. We're hung up to dry. Basically, there at the city council meeting, you hang up to dry, it's like, como que si no fuéramos hecho nada, like we hadn't been there. And, all right, that's politics. Okay, we understand that. But I think that's something that we have to understand going in, because You know, I mean, for me, this should be an autonomous body, you know, that.
And it is.
Well, maybe not, you know. If you already- if
But
you
the
already-
recommendations
Well, if you already-
may
if you
not be
already-
taken into account.
Autonomous body, if you already have on the table, you know, on the agenda, recommendations that came to the city council to us. I mean, how is that autonomous?
Because right now we can say we're not going to debate these matters until, if the election is a key factor here, let's wait for the
Pero
election.
¿dónde
to
nace
pass
todo
it.
esto, you know?
And then we
Where's-
come
where was
back
it
in
born?
January, after Christmas, and debate it seriously and have the public come in. I don't see an urgency for all these changes. I mean, we need it immediately? Really? Is there a hurricane coming and this will provide protection or what? I don't see the urgency. Let's get the election out of the way and then politics out of the way and then debate serious matters seriously and have the public come in and give their input. And then we can say, okay, it's been debated, it's been shot back and forth instead of just, we're going to change the basic structure of the city government in 3 days.
Instead of 3 years.
Instead of 3 years or 2 years, at least months, instead of 3 days. That's ludicrous.
Mr. Gutierrez?
Oh, just a reminder, Madam Chairman, Chairperson. We've already killed 46 minutes on a tangent. We did elect a chair and a vice chair. We haven't moved on to public comments yet. If we follow the Robert's Rules of Order in the way they're stored here, I'm going to do this in all the meetings, because I've been in these meetings before, and I'm going to push them through, because we take off on a tangent. We've spent quite a bit of minutes, and we decided nothing. Zero.
That's right.
Literally zero. And the next one is public comments, to allow the public to come and express their opinion regarding the public notice that was sent within the timeframes of legal. Is that correct?
Yes.
So the public has an opportunity to come speak,
Sure, yes,
and they know about this?
yes.
Not in
Okay.
detail, but.
Just like every council meeting.
Yes, just like every council meeting. So we're following everything.
Yes, the council had passed an ordinance that at every meeting, the public is represented.
So this wasn't sent to just one neighborhood, or we forgot one neighborhood, or we forgot, it's posted the same way the city council? Okay, so we're following. All I'm asking is that we move to public comments, and then after that, we move to begin discussing. But we haven't got to public comments yet. I make a motion that we break up the next one.
Okay, I think because of the discussions that we've had, we can either say how many are for continuing and how many are for not continuing. And then, once we've determined that a majority rules, and I hope everybody goes with majority, then we can go on forward and just say, well, you know, that's it, that's what the majority wanted. So,
But
Can we
that
do
is,
that?
that is number 5.
yeah.
So we just gotta get
we'll
past
do
number 4.
that. So let's do public comments. Are there any public comments? Is there anybody here from the public? You're good?
We're behind closed doors, by the way.
So the public notice didn't work too well because there is no
The public
public
didn't-
here, so.
Well, maybe tomorrow will be better.
Your words.
You can post a picture. Okay, so we'll move on? Okay, now, the next item is to the review.
Excuse me, when are we going to decide whether we move
Right
on or
now.
not?
Right now.
Right now?
The next item is to review of the Laredo City Charter as amended with discussion and possible action on the proposed charter amendments requested at the May 29, 2018 City Council meeting to be considered for the November 6 general city election, special election, and any other matters incident thereto. Okay, now, how many of you all want to continue to review these in the next 3 days that have been allocated to us because of the time frame? And that's one motion. And then the other motion is gonna be how many are willing to say, we don't have enough time to review, the commission sends us back to city council without review. That will be the two motions.
With the
Is that all
recommendation
right?
that it not be on the ballot in November?
With the recommendation that it not be on the ballot in November. So, let's vote on the first one.
Who made the motion and who
We need
seconded the
second,
motion?
a second.
I
Somebody needs to make a motion.
Yes.
Somebody needs to second the
I
motion.
make the motion on the second one that we not move forward and that we send our recommendation to the city council that these items not be on the ballot in November, and that we also recommend that they'll be on once the election is over and we get politics out of the way.
Okay, there is a motion on the floor. Do I hear a second?
I'm sorry, I have a question. Which motion is on? The one about the
The
represent?
first,
That
He's
we
made a
stop,
motion to
that we
decline
stop.
and stop.
Okay.
And that we send the council a recommendation that these items not be, that we didn't proceed, we didn't take them up, and that we recommend that the items not be on the November election.
Okay. So you will clarify that the recommendation is that there be no amendments to this November?
That we don't even consider these, for lack of time. Okay, let me put it, for lack of time, because 3 days is not sufficient to decide a constitution, for lack of time and sufficient time to debate these important matters, that the commission recommends that not only did we not take and discuss them, debate them, that they also that they not be on the ballot in November.
okay,
Then
that's a motion. So is there a second to that motion?
I second Mr. Rodriguez's
Okay,
motion.
there's a motion and a second. Any more discussion on that matter? Okay, let's take,
Wait,
I'm sorry.
is the motion so that, once we make a decision, then it would be a final binding decision for this commission
Yeah.
that, would be irreversible?
yes, they're
For
going
now.
to, they're going to.
Well, for
For
now,
now.
when? For now, when? I mean, for now,
For
Before the
the
election.
3 days
For the
before the
election.
Until
election.
after
only has
yes,
6 days.
that we
This-
we
this-
refuse to.
for 3 days. This is, we're not gonna be bound by a 3-day limit to review these and make recommendations to.
But if they say, okay, we'll give you 2 weeks in July, if the election
Then they be considered later.
after the election
Then we
in
get a separate
November,
motion, right?
so that we can really debate these matters seriously instead of being rushed into because
Is
there's
that
an
what you're
election
saying?
coming up.
You want a time specific?
Or what would you suggest?
No, if you're saying, we're not gonna consider these, make recommendations on these proposed jury order amendments until after the inaugural election.
Yeah.
That's what I
Yes.
understand.
Yes, and if I may, and even though the council will do whatever they want to because they have the power, but the public will understand what happened here, that we refuse to be rushed into matters of such importance because they have deadlines to meet within 3 days, and I don't think any charter or constitution has been amended as seriously as they want us to in 3 days.
We're not gonna act as a rubber stamp.
Exactly.
That's the point.
Very good, Mr. Smith.
Okay, we've got the motion. Does everybody understand it?
Yes.
Okay, all those in favor of that motion, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All those against? 1, 2. The 6 carry it, so we are going to ask the council to please,
Not please, a
To please.
recommendation.
Our recommendation.
That,
we moved and we approved that, how do you put more Chick-fil-A?
No,
Once the commission is dissolved
Yes.
for 2 years, then you have to be reappointed because you don't know that.
Withdraw?
Correct,
This
once
goes to the
the
council.
commission submits its recommendations, it's dissolved and needs to be reappointed.
and they can't be reappointed
Or
for 2 years.
could they convene?
Actually,
to deal with-
Councilman San Miguel had wanted,
He wants to make the change.
yeah, we were gonna amend the ordinance so that it wouldn't be a amendment, so we could keep
That
going.
doesn't make sense. That wouldn't have
They
helped.
prepared that for us, right?
Because the crime
Yes
was
or no?
convicted on was not a crime of moral turpitude.
Well, and it's not a yes or no, you guys can
We can
also
modify
make
it.
different recommendations.
Last
I
time
mean, you
we
don't
had
have
to
to
write-
agree or disagree.
Yeah, we
But
modify
as
it for them. They're
but
gonna
as
be
far as
good.
this goes, we're not going to consider it until after the election.
Council will probably consider it, if they have to, because we're gonna present it to them.
Okay.
Thank you.
They'll do what they want.
It's a big deal. I want to call Laredo Morning Times right now.
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
And I think, I'm sorry, I think the underlying reason here has to be that the public has not been thoroughly informed.
I agree.
For us to make a decision based on what our district and our council member recommends.
Yeah, well,
You're absolutely right in everything you say, and everything you all say, absolutely 100% correct. But they're giving us the opportunity to put input.
well, it's been.
Well, if you want to call that an opportunity, when they tell you, you better revise the charter and I'm giving you 3 days to do it in, when they could have done this with ample time, and they're putting pressure on us because they want it on this ballot, because they don't want to call a special election in July, a special city council meeting in July. So it's to their convenience that they're gonna go on vacation in July and don't have to meet, so the pressure's on us.
Yeah.
Yeah, but now, the pressure's no longer on them anymore. You just rubber stamped it and said, run with it.
By default?
No, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
By
No,
default?
actually, it's the opposite. We refuse to be a rubber stamp.
Yeah,
Exactly.
but you didn't refuse.
Yes, we refuse to accept that rush.
What you said to
And
them
the
in
public
theory
will
is,
hear it,
no.
the public will
We're
hear it.
refusing any changes
The
until
motion
after
does
the November.
include
Yeah.
recommending that these proposals do not go on the ballot.
the council has
And
every
They,
authority.
they don't have to.
Just
And
to clarify,
what I'm refusing is to be under duress, to have to do this in 3 days.
Yes.
Oh, I agree, I'm not.
That's what I'm refusing.
You
For
know,
sure
we're
on that, I
all-
completely agree with you, but you're rubber stamping it for them.
No.
I'm saying, we don't have enough time to do what you're asking us to do. That's the
Well,
problem.
refusing.
Come November, if these end up exactly the way they show up on the ballot,
It's
is
not
that a
because of
rubber
us.
stamp
It's
or
not
not?
because of
But
us.
it won't be our fault.
But it's,
Exactly.
no, that's the question.
No, because the
Question is,
recommendation,
is it a rubber stamp or
no,
not?
Everybody
because
talk.
the
Go
recommendation
ahead,
is,
Wait, Mr. Vice.
I agree with it, with the stand you all are taking. My fear is that council is still gonna put it on the ballot without input from anybody.
sure,
And that's what I do not.
Mayor,
And,
Van-
The public will know.
Maybe we ought to take it to the public.
the recommendation is that they don't. So if they do, they're going against our recommendation.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Not the first time they go against our
You're trying to
recommendations.
identify that. They haven't voted on these, by the way, this is just something the different council members suggested, like, we have, I think, one article or two that there's 3 different versions based on the.
3 opinions.
Yeah, 3 opinions, so these were just, they all provided that they wanted these changes, but the council did not vote, so
And-
they still have to be voted on by the council.
And just for the record, these are gonna be presented no matter what on Monday, and so the council will vote on it, so if you all get a chance and look at them in the next,
Yes.
from here to Monday,
Yes, but.
call your council member
Yes,
and
but
just let them
staff-
know your personal
Staff is going
opinion.
to take, staff is going to take our, who's going to?
Oh, we'll tell them
Yeah.
that you all, your
Our
motion.
decision, our decision.
But I'm just
was-
saying, because they're gonna vote on these items no matter what.
Yes, we understand
But
that.
I would ask, as
Or you could be
a
here.
concerned citizen, talk to the council member that appointed you, if you get a chance, just look at it. Your personal opinion, it's not a group thing, but your personal opinion, if Mr. Castillo and Mr. Torres, look at it, review what you have it in your hands, your concerns, please let them know.
Yeah.
As a
I think
commission,
that's
there wasn't
important.
enough time, you felt you didn't want to be under pressure, we're gonna express that to them. But I would ask that you look at these, because these are the things they're gonna consider.
Yes, of course.
And if you
Now
have
we
an
have,
opportunity, let them
now we have
know
up
what you
until
think
the
on each item.
January to look at them and discuss it with our neighbors and maybe have the people from District
They're
7
voting
here
on
as
Monday
well.
for it.
Wait.
You'll see it in your
There's
election.
somebody raising their hand.
Okay, that's right.
You're next, sir.
So,
Yes.
Sir Secretary,
Sir Secretary.
what's the deadline to get these submit it to the council and
August
vote it
20.
on for the,
Um,
be on the ballot.
That's why we're here.
We have,
No, I'm asking.
based upon the information we have to call the election for final reading of the ordinance August the 6th, which means
Here's the,
Monday is the deadline for the council. Monday is the deadline for council to determine what goes on
You see,
the
On the
ballot.
ballot.
And then on the following Monday, which is until the
I repeat,
16th,
that's why we're here.
first, second. So that's exactly why we're here 3 days this week, to try to get that done.
So
They're going to
That
do,
changes.
and they were
That's-
going
that's
to
the
do
timeline.
whatever they wanted to, whether we said yes on 5, no on 7, and they're still going to do whatever they want to do. So our message here is, don't be like that, don't get politics so involved that you want our basic constitution changed just because you're under pressure to put it on the November ballot. And why mix good government with politics? Let's wait until January.
Yes, sir.
That's our recommendation.
So my question is, has the commission dissolved as of the vote, or when it's presented to the council on Monday? When the decision that we made is presented to the council, and does the chairman present the decision? I'm just wondering what the process is.
In the past, the chairman presented the recommendations to council at that
Okay.
council meeting, and in the past, the commission dissolved upon
we'll all
the
go
submission
video.
of those
Okay.
recommendations, but
Better, you go to the
I believe, is the
We'll all be there.
policy about to change as far as dissolving?
Yes, they wanted the commission to keep going.
Yes, so they're working on not
On always.
Not dissolving
this commission, so this
It's
commission
just
will
a
continue its work
recommendation,
after
right?
I thought our
Monday.
appointment was to 2020.
I'm sorry?
I thought our appointment is
This
commissioners
is more
was
like
2020.
an ad hoc.
Yes.
No, I thought that's a term.
Yes, our decision today did not
No,
dissolve this
I
commission.
understand that. What I'm asking is our appointment, is the commission gonna disband after, right? It's gonna,
There needs to be some changes so that it doesn't disband.
so I can have my 25 charter amendments considered the next.
Because right now, the ordinance only allows 2 years. You'll be
Yes,
going on
We're
and on
working on
with.
that.
And hopefully, the representative from District 7 will be here as well, and maybe some people from the public. We're forgetting the public, they pay the taxes, they keep, this city is our
well, they have
community,
to
it's our
read this
family.
first. They have to read these things first and
And they have not.
understand them.
They have not
And
read.
then we have to take away the changes that are just cleanup changes and the changes that are more better for, as written as ordinances,
Exactly.
You know,
It takes
et cetera,
time
et
to
cetera.
debate these matters.
because that was the first thing that we were told. Some of them are just cleanups, 4 of them.
Yeah, at last charter amendments, there was, for example, giving the mayor the right to vote, so the voters did vote for that, but they didn't change the rest of the charter,
Exactly.
which didn't give them that right. So those are the type of things that we
Right.
need to make consistent throughout.
Right, so we clean up.
Mhm.
There are some that are cleanup,
Yes.
4 of them.
Housekeeping.
Yes, at least.
And then there's 10 that are better as ordinances than they are as charter changes. And that's what the staff is going to recommend, that those be made ordinances and not charter changes. So out of those, out of the 25, right, 25, we end up with 11, 12?
Well, there may be a little bit more than that,
The
but,
base.
because I know
15?
there's, yeah, probably about 15, because I know there's 3 versions of it, so ultimately it would be, if
So
any, one
those
version.
15, I think the public can have a very good, look at and make good suggestions to us or to their council member.
And whatever is voted on, if anything, to go forward, we are going to definitely alert the public. We have a video, we have a presentation, we have all the.
Yeah, that was
pamphlets.
instructed by council.
But we've been working with other cities who've contacted us and said, we've had to do this quickly too, so this is what we did to get it out to the public, because we realized there's just.
And
no
will
time.
you make a clear determination as to what is a word change, cleanup, housekeeping?
Yes, we're going to make it very clear.
Okay,
That's
and then these are actual charter changes?
right.
And do you think council will take your advice and make those ordinance changes?
can't
It's wishful thinking.
One question, when is the council meeting again, the city? council?
On Monday.
Monday.
Monday, okay.
Maybe you should amend your,
No, that stands,
it stands?
Yeah.
Yes.
But no, to say that some of these, that they do review some of these
for the sake,
for
for the sake of not
ordinances.
muddying the water more and not, I'll
That's
keep,
true.
I'll
That's
keep
true.
those
You gotta
things in
keep it
there that
clean.
need minor little things.
Yeah,
I'll
keep
keep
it
them,
clean.
I'll keep them, that's not going to sink the ship or not.
Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
When
Yes.
would be the next, after the November election, when would be the next opportunity for the voters to vote on this?
2 years later.
2 years.
2 years,
Years,
twenty.
yeah.
That's
Which
the right
is the
time frame.
big
That's the right time frame
presidential
for
election.
making major changes.
The only problem with that, with all this, is that particular section where the people of Laredo said the voter that the mayor could vote. But there are other parts of the charter that said the mayor can't vote
Yes,
unless there's a tie.
yes.
So what they.
But that's just cleaning up. That's just cleaning
That's
up.
a-
Well, I understand, but remember, we're not gonna say anything until
No,
2
no, no,
years
but
now.
the mayor has been voting. Yes or no?
No, sometimes he doesn't.
She has been voting,
And
that,
it
that,
needs to be called
yes.
into question.
So that's been he's been voting, so that's going to affect the power, the little power that the mayor has.
Well, 2 years is a long time, to wait to clean up stuff, but, I'm just saying.
Don't worry, they're gonna do it.
They're gonna do it.
All of
They're
this
gonna
that they
vote.
have here is gonna be adopted by the council, except for maybe one or two controversial ones. But I think most of the cleanup acts that they proposed
Are
are
gonna,
gonna be carried. This is.
This is
we
just a
were there, we were
recommendation.
here to just say,
Just a recommendation
sounds like a
saying
damn good idea.
Sounds like.
the
So we're gonna do
public,
it.
the charter commission members said no.
well,
You cannot
apparently
run
they didn't think it was a
important
good
matters
idea.
down our throat.
Yeah,
If not, why have a commission? Just
and they are very important. I think everyone agrees to that,
Yes.
that they are very important.
That's what regulates our lives. This is our family, and we're regulated by what's there. In major important changes, cannot be just do it that way. That's what they do in North
Well,
Korea.
we've got your
William
charge,
did it.
and we've got our charge, and
Good kid.
do I hear a motion to adjourn?
To adjourn.
I second the motion to adjourn.
There's a motion and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any more Chick-fil-A's?
I think about Chick-fil-A.
Wait, this is for you.
Yes.
Guys, my dad was barbecuing and I'm gonna make it on time.